Okay, I believe we are now live on Facebook. Greetings and welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the episode 3 of Visionary Parenting Online series, where we are sowing the seeds of success within us, within our children, transforming a generation so that they believe that they can be, do, and have anything that they desire. Love it. So this series will be having powerful conversations with a variety of parenting experts, thought leaders, and parents who are taking the journey of empowering themselves and their children to grow, learn, and live abundant lives as defined by them. And for today's episode, my fantastic guest is Frances Rudd, who is for nearly 30 years an educator in special from 0 to 5. I believe 0 to 5, that is right, and in early years in schools and family intervention, and has been doing some amazing work in all of this time with her pupils and students and families. So I'd like to introduce, please, Frances Rudd. Welcome for joining me on Visionary Parenting.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Brilliant. So first of all, I'd like to ask, what was your journey into becoming an educator? What drew you into that?
Well, I've always wanted to work with children. And honestly, I say sometimes I fell into early intervention. One of my classmates in high school, her mom, I'd gotten out of, I went to a junior college and I was working in daycare. And she stopped by one day and told me about a job, and I applied for it in early intervention. And in early intervention, it's where you work with children from birth to 3 with developmental delays or atypical development, meaning they have the skill but not the quality, or they may have a diagnosed condition that says they will have delays in development. So,
okay.
And so I started there. So yeah.
Did carry on? Sorry, you started there.
I'm sorry. I started there in July 2nd of 1992, and that's where I started, and it's been something that I've enjoyed doing. I've worked with the program. The early intervention is family centered, so not only the families come because their child needs services. However, you also would address other things that the family may need or issues they may have that you could help them with. So it was family centered and not just child centered. So I really liked that as well. So yeah.
So you ended up helping not just the child, but the whole family in different
capacities.
To yes. Also how to support the child.
Not only to support the child, but if the family parent wanted to go back to school, or if they needed help with housing and things like that, we help them with the resources.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So you did the support in all aspects then, not just educational and developmental, but welfare and support and the whole kind of like family services that you would give. Right. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
So as a case manager or service coordinator, because they're not cases to be managed, but as a service coordinator would help them with finding the resources they needed and things like that. And also I served as an educator as well, where on their educational plan, the goals that were there help the families to help their child reach those goals. So yeah, for their developmental goals. So did that as well. And so I did that until I think 2020. And then I started in preschool. I got my master's in special education with the endorsement in early childhood special education. So I started working in preschool. So yeah, and so yes.
So you did that just before the pandemic hit, is that right?
Actually,
or in the midst of it, like.
But I was in the classroom for 5 days, and then they shut it down and went virtual. So I've been virtual ever since. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's a challenge actually. And I think many, and it's interesting because I think there's quite a few newly qualified teachers whose first experience of teaching was online, virtual, as opposed to into the classroom. And that's a whole different experience, teaching virtually. So yeah. Okay. So what's the sort of things that you did with your young people in those family centered type, but educational wise?
And we did natural environment. So I would go into the home or to the community and work with them. So whatever goals were there on the it's the IFSP, Individualized Family Services Plan, that we worked on, and they had long-term goals and then the short-term goals centered around their development. So we just work with the families on how they could help to their child meet those goals in their natural environment. It's and sometimes that's hard, because a lot of times that's hard because not everybody has, things set up in such a way. And also, when we're living our lives, we live them so differently. Some families, people may say, oh, they don't care about their child. If they're trying to make sure that they have lights, they have food, they have just those survival things they need, me coming into the home and telling them what they need to do with their child is a whole different story. So, you have to respect where that family is, and then meet them where they're at, and then work with them from there. So a lot of times we met in the home, but we would meet in the community setting as well. And it may be at a daycare, if the families were working and the child was at daycare, we'd go to the daycare. If the family, if they were at a relative's home, we went there as well. So yeah.
And that's you've made a very good point there, because we're in my teaching period of time, I came across many parents who people might say were not active in their children's education or not present, that you didn't see them all the time, but they were working so hard or just trying to, keep the wolves from the door, trying to keep their children fed, trying to, keep home and all of those things. And that has a massive impact on the way that we parent and interact with our children when we're just busy trying to survive. And then that also brings on a whole lot of other feelings as a parent, if you're in the midst of that guilt that you're not there for your kids, the guilt that you can't turn up for your child's play or be active in the school that they're doing or be present as that person in their educational or school or environment in that kind of thing, because you're on this grind, you're on this hustle trying to do, just trying to, like I said, keep the wolves from the door, keep living, keep surviving, keep them going to school in the first place, those kind of things. And that is a major challenge for a lot of parents. So what advice or what comfort could you give them in that aspect on how to kind of like overcome or?
Well, first off, in going into the home, with no preconceived ideas or expectations as, oh, you should be doing this or you should be doing that. You should really know the family and get to know that family. Yes, you still need to work with the child because those are the goals, but you also need to get to know the family. Find out. And we used to say too that there's a way to ask questions and things like that, not because you want to know, their personal business, like, there's a country song, who's doing rides to somebody tonight and whose car is not parked next door. But you don't want that. You want to know how you can help them, where their focus is. If I had a mom that she was going to school, but then her babysitter who was watching her child could no longer watch her child. So that not only stopped her from going to school. So so she didn't need me coming out there to help her with goals right then. What she needed help to find childcare because she wanted to continue with school, because when she bettered her life, she bettered the life of her child. So those are the things that you really needed to focus on and center on, and just being present. And it's hard sometimes when you've got stuff going on in your world too, but really being present and paying attention to what's going on. So I have been guilty of it because I love to talk, and sometimes I would talk so much, not giving the parents an opportunity to talk. And I had a coworker who's a dear friend, and she used to give me a look, and that look was like, okay, you can stop now, because sometimes you overwhelm people, because just because up here what you think they need to do And what they should do that's not necessarily where they're at and what they can do at that moment. Not saying they can't do it, but at that moment in time, they may not be able to do it. So
Yeah, that's very true. So I know that you had a different journey into parenting. Did your view change in the way that you worked with parents and children when you became a parent? Did something shift?
um, yes, it did shift in that, but just in a different way of realizing what I was doing to myself. Because before I was a parent, I adopted my son when I was 45. And but before that, I was auntie, I was godmother to so many children and to my own nephews. So I, it not only in work, but in my personal life, I was around children all the time. I was around my friends that had children and things like that. So I knew the difficulty of it. But when you can't give a child back, and you that's a whole different world. It's like, okay, I could babysit and say, okay, your mom's coming by, your dad's coming by, and stuff like that. But when you're having a rough day and you want to just, sit in it and be, the internet goes off and your child is not happy, things like that. So, and the other thing I realized too was how unhappy I was with what I was doing. And that was a hard thing for me to admit, because it wasn't that, because I'm helping families. I'm helping families with children that have disabilities and different issues going on. Mm-hmm. And then to say that I was unhappy, but I wasn't unhappy working with the families. It was all of the stuff you're taking on. And I had not learned self-care. I had not learned how to let that go through me and focus on myself. So once I got Jaden and I realized how much of it I was bringing home and not leaving it at the door, I was still doing paperwork. I was still doing this. I was still doing that. And then I had this child that needed my attention more so. And so that was one of the eye openers for me, was that a lot of times I was being the fixer, and people didn't need me to be the fixer. They needed me to help them fix it themselves. So once I understood that, it was an eye opener for me. It was one of those, kind of things. It was, okay, you don't need to be the fixer. And one of my friends said something to me once. Therapy and coaching, I'd gone through all that, and she said something to me about, oh, you're just trying to fix me. And I told her, I spent too much money fixing myself. I ain't got time to fix nobody else. So, I know now that it's there's only so much you can do, and you're not going to be there for people. Sometimes we make people so dependent on us. We teach people how to treat us, and they're so dependent on us that when we step out, we have not given them the building blocks and foundation to do for themselves, because we've made them dependent on ourselves. Sometimes we have this super person complex of, oh, I can do it for you. I can do it for you. But what you're really doing is you're setting these people up to depend on you. And when you're gone, then they're looking for that next person to depend on and not themselves. So there's a lot of growth I needed to do once I became, a full-time parent, because it's hard. It is. So.
And what you just said there about, there's a couple of things that you just, what you were saying just triggered in my head. So one there about making people dependent on you. Now that's something that I say in reference to how we deal with our children. We have to be so mindful about the things that we're doing for them, because as parents, we love our children, we want to do all of these things for them, but when we overdo things, when we, what I call mollycoddle them, do everything for them, in actual fact, we disable them. We make them ineffective people, adults. When they get into adult, we make them ineffective because we've disabled them. We've done everything for them. They are unable to do these things for themselves. So when they meet adversity or challenges, or even sometimes the littlest things, they got no clue how to do it, because we've been doing it. We've been doing it all for them all the time, So we do have to make sure that we enable whoever it is that we're working with, whether it's families, parents, or children, to do for themselves, to find it within them, guide them to pull it out, because we all can find things for themselves and do it for them. So that's important that we do that for our children as well, is teach them to be able to do things, work things out, find things for themselves that they are more than capable of doing. And that all we do is guide them, you know. And then the other thing that you triggered in my mind was when you were speaking about doing too much in terms of having your child as well. I remember a time when I was doing all of that teaching, and because teaching was so much workload, all of the books had to take them home. I used to walk with a trolley. Yeah, it was a little crate trolley that I'd put all my kids' books in, wheel them to the car, in the back of the boot, take them home, do all of the marking and things like that over the weekend and all of that. And there was an occasion where I went to do my marking one Sunday and I couldn't find the books. And I was like, where are these kids' books? Where are they? And I knew for a fact, I took them out of the car and I brought them in the house, and I knew I did. And I'm walking around, where are them? My child had taken the books and put them in the bin. She'd put them in the bin. She was like, no. And that was to me a clear sign to say, you know what, girl, this can't work. My daughter is telling me I'm doing too much, that I'm working too much. This is that I had to draw a line. And so from that point on, I never took books home to mark again. I became that, it was literally that point. There was a part where it said, if it's not done within the school day at school, then it ain't getting done until the next day. Yeah. And that was the attitude that I had to take to ensure that that I was putting me and my child first. Yeah. And that it wasn't becoming all about work and putting all of these other children in and front
not that
of.
You don't love those
no,
other
that I
children,
don't. Yeah.
But you also have to recognize, just like their parents are responsible for them, in the end, you are responsible for your child. You have to lay the responsibility where it's supposed to be.
Absolutely. And it reminds me also of this saying that they would say that, so teachers' children were the most uneducated, policemen's children were the most criminals. Social workers' children needed the most support, because we were so busy doing it for everybody else that we didn't do it for our own. No, we didn't do it for our own. So it is important to remember these things. I also remember that I deliberately didn't bring my daughter into the same school that I was working at, because I knew that I would always be mum first. Yeah, mum first. And I see sometimes how some of the staff, and let's be real, how the staff and other teachers, you know, can handle our children sometimes, you know. And I knew that weren't going to be the case for mine, because I would I'd fall out with my colleagues and things over my child. So it was very much, okay, you know what, best you go to another school where I can deal with you and that school as parent only. Yeah, parent only.
I was like that when I was auntie or godmother. I never forget. Catherine is, I guess she's 26 now. She's soon to be 27. But when she was in kindergarten, and Lisa's gonna have fit me saying this, but anyway, she was in kindergarten, and one of the teachers said something about she wasn't doing her work because she thought she was cute. I was like, what? And I was walking in the hall. I was ready. She was like, okay, you need to come out of the building now, because she has Turner syndrome, so she has difficulty with processing, especially when she was in kindergarten. So she was not being. Now she was cute. She still is. She's adorable. 20. But that wasn't the reason.
The way she was using that phrase was as a derogatory phrase, right?
Exactly.
In terms of that she was being. He was being offensive or being that sassy, giving back chat type kind of thing. And
I wasn't having it. So no.
So, so as educators in schools, we do recognize what it's like having our children around, and also the impact it has on our children too, because other kids look at them differently and feel that they get favors and all of those kind of things. So to give that real nice but balance, I must admit I did it for my protection, because I know what I'm like. I know what it's like when you poke Mama Bear, mate. Mama Bear is devouring you, full stop. I don't care who you are. Yeah. So it was one of those ones where it needed to be like for my own security as well, to ensure that she was in another school. Absolutely. Oh, brilliant. Okay. So what is your key thing that you find the most important that we should remember as parents? So if you think that what the title of this episode is that, you know, I was me before I was a parent, what do you think the key thing is that we must remember?
Just that you were an individual. I was Francis before I became a parent. So therefore, you need to look at self-care. You need to look at how you can take care of yourself. Actually, my next blog that I'm writing right now, I should be writing right now, that's another story, but is parenting, self-care, and guilt, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because a lot of times we're made to feel guilty that we need time to ourselves. You know, oh, you got a child, that flew out the window when you had that child, you made that decision. No, it didn't. You have to be present for yourself, because if something happens to you because you have not taken care of yourself mentally and physically, then that means that someone else will have to take care of your child. And I adopted Jaden for me to raise with my family and my friends' help, not to have somebody else to raise him, because I didn't take care of myself mentally and physically, you know? So I want parents to know that it is okay to put yourself first when you need to, in order to be a better person and a better parent. So yeah, that's really big to me.
So when we say put ourselves first, what do we mean? What do you mean? What exactly do you mean by that?
Meaning that when you're having a difficult day, sometimes you need to stop, breathe, do something for yourself before you bring it into your home and to your child. My example is that your child may do something one day and you've had a great day at work. So they do it and you're like, oh, that's okay. You know, it's okay. We'll, work. But if you've had a bad day at work and they could do that exact same thing, and you're like having a fit, you're yelling, you're screaming, what have you done to that child when that child thought, oh, mom handled the last time, so we can talk about this or we can do this, but then they get a totally different reaction. They don't know what to expect from you. They may be afraid to come to you and tell you stuff because they don't know what your response is, because it's based on how your day went outside of your home. So sometimes you need to breathe and focus and kind of release that, leave it where it needs to be, outside of your home. Don't bring that through the door. And it's one of those things too that, and I don't mean, sometimes when I say self-care, people say, well, I don't have enough money for this, and that. You can turn on YouTube and turn on some meditation music. You can do different things. Sometimes it's picking up a book or picking up a magazine or picking up the iPad or, whatever you have, and reading something that's enjoyable for you. Those are the things I mean. It may be after your child goes to sleep. And I'm not a big believer in washing dishes, because dishes are dirty and they have to be. That's what my dishwasher's for. It'll hold them just fine. So, I can put that there and then put the dishes in the dishwasher while they are washing, or, I can read a book. I can do this. I can watch Golden Girls. Those are, you have to have, yeah, I love Golden Girls. Those are things that, little things that, but you need to focus on you for a little bit, and sometimes I may be standing in the kitchen fixing dinner, and just breathe, just take some breaths, just to center myself. Those things are very important. We're so busy moving and moving and moving, we don't realize that we're not stopping to take a breath. One of my coaches told me once, She was like, when do you focus on yourself? I was like, well, I guess when I'm in the shower. She said, think about it when you're in the shower. And she's right. When I was in the shower, I was planning out a month ahead of time. I was thinking this, I was thinking that. I wasn't even focused on just the water beating down on me. I was just going through the motions and then getting out and then going on. I never stopped. Even when I was eating, I would eat on the road or on the run because I had another meeting to go to. I had to do this, I had to do that. I wasn't even tasting my food, or I was just eating to get to the next step, and that wasn't healthy for me because my body wasn't even registering that I'd eaten. So I was eating and eating and eating because I wasn't even thinking about what I was doing. I was just going to the next step, doing the next thing for work, and paperwork is no joke. So
that's just like a road to burnout.
Yes,
that's
definitely.
A road to burnout, a road to stress, a road to not being connected to yourself, to the people around you, to the environment, just on autopilot mode. And you keep going like that, and before you know it, where's your life gone?
Exactly.
Where's the enjoyment in life?
Right.
Where's the connection? Where's the thing that makes life worth something?
And I'll tell you, and one of the things that had me to realize that even more was that my son has special needs. So he has an educational plan with the school system. And his first grade, his first week of school, I assumed everything was going great. I didn't, he was nonverbal, but he was learning to talk. He was talking more and things like that, but he was not talking like letting me know what happened at school. Mm-hmm. And I went to my first meeting and they bombarded me with all these things that he had done, things that I never, pulling the fire alarm, doing this, running out of the class. And I'm like, why didn't somebody tell me? And I say all that to say, but what I did to help me stay connected was that they thought of telling me was to send me lots of emails after that. So I printed off the emails and I kept them. I actually still have them in my car. I had them in the back of my car. And so when I would pull, I'd see it. That helped me to realize I had to be mindful and I had to ask the questions. I could no longer assume that people were telling me what I needed to know. I had to ask. Mm-hmm. So it's just those little, and I say that because that was my way of triggering. You need to ask questions. You need to be mindful of. Just because no one's saying something to you does not mean everything is going okay. So that's one of the things that I, in my parenting and teaching parents and talking to parents about it, is that you need to be present in some way. And it does not mean that you have to show up at the school all the time, but you do want to ask those questions. You do, if your child is not, every 9 weeks is when they bring home a folder of paperwork. I was like, no. I need that every week so I can know what you're working on with him. Does that mean that I'll be able to do it all the time? No, but at least I'll be aware of what's going on, So it's just being present, and being present looks so different to everybody. So I would never say to you how my present is how yours should be. You have to figure it out for yourself, know?
And because that's it, because everyone is defined by them. It's what works for them. Everyone is unique in their own way, and so to find the way that they connect to stay in communication with the educators, with the school, with whoever it is that's working with the child, they've got to find the rhythm and the routine that works for them, but ensure that you do make that connection. That is imperative. That is imperative without a doubt. In that sense, it's got to make that connection. So what's your vision for the work that you are currently doing, or that you would like to do? Where do you want to go with that, and what's the impact that you're hoping to have?
I want to help parents realize that it's not, I know we already know it's not easy, But there's nothing wrong with admitting that it's not easy, because it's not a secret that parenting is not easy. It can be enjoyable. I would not change any decisions I have made for my child and being with my child, would not change any of them. But being honest with yourself and seeking help when you need help is very important. And I like, advocacy is in my heart. I want parents to be advocates for their children, but I call it advocacy 101. I'm not talking about, when it gets to when you need mediation and a lawyer. I mean, in the beginning, knowing your child's teacher, knowing how to contact your child's teacher, knowing if your child has an educational plan, knowing where their plan is, doing things like that. I'm not organized, but I do know where things are that I need, and so those are the things I want. I want to help parents enjoy parenting more and have less guilt, because a lot of times we do what we think we need to do to better our children, and then we wake up one morning and we find out our kid is doing this, that, and the other. We didn't even know they could do it. When did were they able to do that? So I want to help parents parent with less guilt and more love for themselves and their child, because a lot of times we don't give ourselves grace. We don't give ourselves grace at all. We should have known that, or somebody told us this, and that's not the way it works. And the other thing is that those limiting beliefs, a lot of times how we parent is based on how we were parented or experiences we had as children. And we don't realize sometimes how large a role that plays in what we're doing now, not only when we parent, but in our lives. I tell people, I wasn't born a fixer. I was raised a fixer. So therefore, it really was, getting out of that, because I thought if I fixed it meant that whoever I was fixing it for would love me. That was not the case, because I taught people how to treat me. Yes. So sometimes people not even sometimes, 98% of the time, no one had to come and ask me to do anything for them. I'd hear, or they'd say something to somebody else, and here I was trying to fix it, and it's exhausting. But that was some limiting beliefs I grew up with that I later found out I made some assumptions that were, not true, but I didn't know that until I really went through the work of figuring it out. So I want parents to know that I'm here to help them figure all those things out so that they can enjoy their lives. And, it's that it used to be a thing that they said, if you wanted time to yourself, you are a selfish parent. That is not the case. It's needed. You need time to yourself. So I want parents to know that there is a way to have it all, whatever all means to them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. Again, you said you was raised a fixer. Yeah, you was raised in a certain way. So what that makes me think about is, as children in that young period of time, that's when their subconscious mind is open and is receiving everything, all of the input, all of the information, everything, and creating their paradigms. And our paradigms is what controls us. As much as we consciously want to think, oh, we want to do this, we want to do that, but our subconscious, our paradigms are in our subconscious mind. And that's what actually controls our behaviors. And all our behaviors are habitual. Paradigms control our habitual behaviors, and all behaviors are habitual. And our paradigms are created in that time, where as a young child, when our subconscious mind is open to all that space, like that sponge. We know of that sponge period. We know that in the child's development, the developmental period is up until 7, 8, 9. They're becoming that sponge, and then their logical mind starts developing, and then that's when the conscious and they get things. But the paradigm's already set. Then the beliefs are already set. The limiting beliefs are already set, and so in this, when I talk about transforming a generation, it's like I want us parents to be aware of the paradigms that we are creating for our children
Yes.
when they're at that age, you know, and to be conscious of not creating those limiting paradigms, you know, and being open to the different beliefs that could be set in there, to the ones that actually allow you to grow, to prosper, to move into your next levels, for our children to, you know, to know their magnificence within them, you know. And
Yes.
it's, we have to be so careful. And even if we've already embedded a paradigm that we know, you know, even if we become to that awareness. So imagine now your child is 10 years old and that sponge is already kind of like done, and the logical mind is thinking, is like, but you're aware that there's certain things that you could have done to this to make the changes. Let's think. This is why I talk about sowing the seeds of success within us and within our children. You know, we need to be aware of the impact that we have on our children, that we have on their conscious beliefs, that we have on their limiting beliefs, that we have on everything that they're doing, and then ensure that we sow the seeds within us, we lead by example, that our children can see. Because even then, you see what you was talking about in terms of when you don't leave things outside and you come home and react possibly the same situation, but depending on how you are feeling, and is the way that you respond. Yeah, depending on that. And so that tells you that it's our perception, it's our
Yeah.
responses, it's what we do. They also then learn how to overcome challenges, how to react in those situations. They learn all of these things from us. They learn what struggle, how to deal with struggle based on how we've dealt with struggle. All of those things, there's so much that they get from us, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. So, you know, it's very important that we become aware of these things so that we can, you know, plant the good seeds and counteract the things. We're not perfect at
No.
all, but by awareness we can make corrections. By awareness we can say, you know what, I know that wasn't the best way to do it, I should have done this, but you know, we're and have those kind of conversations with our children. That's what makes the difference. We're not looking for perfection, we're looking for awareness.
Exactly. And you know, one of the things that I realized that I wasn't doing, because, and we can get into the male energy and female energy all, but I felt that female energy made me weak. And so I was trying to prove myself to people that didn't care, you know, and nor should they have cared, you know, kind of thing. And so I realized that I had gotten to the point that I was always in charge, you know, and I had to step back and say things like, I made a mistake or I was wrong. And Jaden didn't, if he did something wrong, it was an accident, but I could see the fear in his eyes because he didn't know how I was going to respond. And I just thought it was an accident, right? He was like, uh-huh. I was like, okay. So if I did something, I was like, oh, it was an accident. I started owning up to flaws that are natural flaws, you know, saying I was wrong or saying, you know, excuse me, I'm sorry. We teach, just like we teach people how to treat us, we teach our children how to be treated, you know. So that is so important. I had to back and, you know, realize that leading with love and my female energy was not a bad thing. It was a necessary thing, you know. So those are things that I had to back on and think about, and show my emotion. And it's okay to do those things and to be wrong and own up to that, because it's what we it's a part of life. It's a part of life and it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. That is we have to model, we have to show them
Definitely.
how to be treated, we have to give them their voice, allow them to use their voice, teach them how to use their voice to advocate for themselves as well, you know. And we do that by modeling it to them as well, you know, by doing it ourselves and modeling it to them as well, you know. It's so important. Yes, that's
Mm.
brilliant. That's brilliant. Okay, so I was just talking about seeds and the seeds that we sow in our children. What do you think is the key seed, the one of the more important seeds to sow within children and families to allow them to be what it is that they desire? What do you think?
I'm going to say confidence in themselves, because just that example that I gave you about me admitting when I'm wrong or there was an accident or some things like that, I could definitely see the correlation with Jaden when he went to school. He was able to tell his teachers more when he didn't feel good or when someone upset him and things like that, because he knew it was okay. So even in just making that change, it built his confidence. Now, he was always bossy, but being bossy and being confident are not the same thing. And I think people get that confused a lot of times. But his confidence and his ability to advocate for himself increased. So I think that's what we need. A lot of times, I think as parents, we're fearful that our children won't make it or it'll be too hard for them. I have been a firm believer in when we need to raise the bar. And until our children show us that we need to lower that bar some, just a little bit there, then you do it. But don't start it low because you think that's where they're at. You find out where they're at, and then you work from there. I had this little girl. She has a diagnosis of Down syndrome. Down syndrome there's no diagnosis on her though. She would one day I was working with her, and she was mad because she wanted juice, and her grandmother told her she couldn't get juice until I finished working with her and stuff. So we were working and things like that. She sat there the whole time like this, just like this. She could have cared less. And when I was finally finished, because I just talked to her because she was not having it, and she looked at me and she said, juice. And then her grandmother got her juice. Her mom called me and she said, Miss Rudd, Miss Francis, I don't know what you did with my child, but she's talking about her letters. She's doing the. I said, let me tell you what, your child ignored me the whole time. She was like, huh? I was like, she was so mad at me, but I didn't stop the show because she gave me attitude. I continued to work with her and do present things with her, because she was attending and she was interacting with me as far as being there. She didn't get up to leave and things like that. But it's like, sometimes we take people, children and adults, we take their non-response as that they're not paying attention to us. We can never do that. Just because someone doesn't respond to what we're doing does not mean they're not paying attention to what we're doing. And we need to remember that we are modeling for so many people, and we think, oh, they're not paying attention. Yes, they are. So yeah. So it's just giving kids credit for being little adults, just like we pay attention to stuff, they pay attention to stuff. Being a little adult is not a negative if you don't treat it as a negative.
Because sometimes people like to treat the children like they've got no sense, like they don't, I'm saying it in a nice way, because they're young and thinking like they've got no sense, oh, they're not going to know this, or they're not going to understand that, or they're not going to think, and they might not know it or understand it in the specific that you know it and understand it, but they get the essence of it, they get the energy of it, they feel it, they know it in that capacity, and they take it in a cellular level, may not be on a logical level, but they take it on an emotional and a cellular level, which I actually think is a lot more impactful, because they're feeling it in their bodies, they're feeling it in that sense, as opposed to feeling it in their thinking about it logically and working something out. They're feeling it, and that is creating an impression, that is creating that image, that is creating a paradigm in that sense as well. So let's remember, these are amazing little human beings that
they are,
that pick up on so much. They are able to know so much that we may not be specifically telling them, but they pick it up anyway. So let's be aware of that.
Yeah, and I think about that too, because like when things get stuck between the washer and the dryer, I use coat hanger to try to get the things out and stuff like that. Well, today Jaden tossed his minion that he has to have in the back of hatch of our vehicle. And I was like, you're gonna have to get that. I'm not getting that for you. So we had parked and stuff like that. And I was looking at something, the mail or something. And he said, Mama, I got it. He'd taken a hanger that I had in the back, a plastic hanger, and he reached back there and got that. I never thought he was paying attention to that, but he was able to do that. And so I'm like, yeah, we have to give children credit where credit is due. And a lot of times, a lot of the parents, when I coach them about parenting, the first thing they want to do is tell me what the child is or isn't doing. And I have to bring them back and say, let's talk about you. Let's talk about what's going on with you. And they're like, but you're supposed to be teaching me about my, a lot of times parenting starts with the parenting. And let's talk about what's going on with you. I'm not there to tell you you're doing something wrong. That's not my role. I want you to listen to what you're saying and what you're doing and what's going on with you. Because at the end of the day, just like what Gary was saying, at the end of the day, you go home with that child. I don't. So it's like, your child best. So let's work on ways that you can work with your child, and I can help you do that. And a lot of times that is changing your approach to things. There are so many different approaches that we can take. And that was hard for me because I was so used to doing it a certain way and had expectations of that it was like, in vogue, free your mind and the rest will follow. I'm getting a shirt that says that. So yeah, because that's exactly, we do need to free our minds a lot of times. Free our minds from those expectations that things have to be done the way that you've always done them, your parents did them, or someone else did them. You got to free your mind, and you need to work on with a clean canvas, or maybe a canvas that you've had to paint over a couple of times, and that's okay, because that is life. There's no perfect. You can work toward perfection, but perfection is making changes to grow and learn. But if you say you're perfect at something, that means that you can just hang it up and walk away. But that's not life. You want to continue to grow and learn. And that's what parenting is, to continue to grow and learn. So,
yeah. So that one's just kind of reverberating around in my spirit there. It's like, yeah, you're right. It's a continuous growing and learning. And as they're getting older, as they go through the ages and the stages, it's every time it's a new growth circle, it's a new learning cycle, it's a new, as you go through each of those stages, and I think about it, I'm just thinking back on my journey. And yeah, because my daughter's going to be 21 soon, and so going through those stages as well, and teaching her to advocate for herself, to speak up for herself, but also in the way that, because she's a child, there's that usual, well, you're a child, I'm an adult, be quiet. What's that saying?
Do as I say,
do as I say, not as I do, and then to be seen and not heard.
Not heard,
yeah, and all of those sort of things. I was like, no, we're not doing that. we're not doing that. Yeah. So when you have something is that you need to speak up for yourself. But I taught her that you speak up in a way where you're making your points, you're saying what you need to say, but you're not being disrespectful, you're not being rude. And no adult, when you're making your points clear, can tell you that you're being disrespectful or rude, or, put yourself across in that kind of way. And then from when you do that, I've got you, girl, I've got the rest. I'll do the rest, you know what I mean? But you do that, them things when you've got to advocate for your child, but in that sense. And a lot of times the parents, the adults that she encountered like that were a bit flummoxed by it, in the sense of, how is this little person speaking so clearly and confidently about what it is that she wants, needs, desires, and so forth, and speaking up for herself in that way, as opposed to just being told and being quiet. And it's like, because we have to ensure that they're able to do that and they can carry that on throughout. So now she will use it on me too.
Yeah, and it's one of the,
that's one of the drawbacks.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
That is one of the their drawbacks, is that they will then turn around and use it on you. But
and that's when you know you did a great
that's
job.
Exactly.
Yes, indeed. Yep.
Exactly. It's like I can't even say anything. I did that.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
So true.
Yeah.
That is brilliant. That's brilliant. All right. So just to wind up now and bring this to an end. Thank you so much. I've been enjoying this conversation. I would just like something that our parents, that you could give to our parents to do, that they might be able to, just one little thing that they could think about to do that might create a shift in how they're looking at things or doing things. That would make, I'm throwing you on the spot here, babe, sorry.
Well, I would think just stop, and I want to say stop, look, and listen. Stop, look at your child, realize that your child will one day be an adult. Are the things that you're putting into them now, if you are yelling, if you're screaming, if you're demanding, listen to what you may be getting back in the future. It's not what you say. It's not what you say, it's how you say it, Mm-hmm. So stop, look, and listen. Really do those things. Stop, look at your child, look at your surroundings, and think, is this what I want my child to be saying, to be doing? And then look in the future of, okay, what could this be? What could, things like that. I was coddling Jaden too much. I was trying to make up for those years when he was in foster care. Yeah. And I realized that my dad helped me to realize that to do that was in making him depend on me and not growing. He was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I can't make up for those things, So I had to give him more independence and him to do things that he could do. And then if he did do things that I wasn't, he would I was wondering how he got things off of the top shelf in his closet. He'd taken a little ladder. He was a little stepping stool, hit it from in there, and so he could get stuff. And but he was just getting the stuff that belonged to him. So, it was a matter of me just being aware that's what he was doing, but I didn't take it away from him, because that was better than him, climbing up on something to do it and stuff. So I just think to stop, look, and listen. Really stop, look at what you're doing, listen to yourself, and listen. And you think about what it sounds like to a child, what it sounds like to your child, and look into the future of what that could come back to later. We think that we're just when we're coming up on a child, they say get at a child's level. If you go in your camera, if you go in and you really, if you go in close to the camera and say something, that's what your child is seeing. They're seeing this big person coming at them, and sometimes they're scared. So they're not having time to really process what you're saying out of fear. So we really need to think about those things, Yeah. Because I used to say I fear two things: God, my parents. And but then I realized I should not be fearing my parents, I shouldn't be fearing my parents. But I said that for a long time because, but I shouldn't have been fearing them. And I respect them now because I have grown and I can have different conversations with them. But I should have been respecting my parents and not fearing them,
Is that a cultural thing? Because I think it's a cultural thing, where we were raised fearing our parents. I'm not sure. Yes. I'd need to speak to some other cultures and find out whether that's a cultural thing or whether that's a Black Caribbean, Afro-American thing, where we were raised fearing our parents, fearing God, fearing our parents in a certain way. I would love to find out if that's a case anywhere else in that sense. But you're absolutely right. We shouldn't be fearing our parents. We should be having that unconditional love, knowing that no matter what, and we do have that, but it was still draped in fear.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So we want to remove that drape of fear, and just feel the love, the support, the connection, the nurture, everything, that allows us as human beings to blossom and grow into our fullness,
Yeah.
Which is.
And
Go on.
And I apologize. And that does not mean that discipline goes out the window when you do that. That does not mean that at all. A lot of times people are like, well, if they don't fear you, they're not going to listen to you.
That's rubbish.
Sorry. No, that just means
That's rubbish.
they're going to sneak around and get it done one way or the other. Trust me. Not that I would know that now. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, it doesn't, there's got to be consequences, but you have to be aware of what the consequences are. I mean, that's a whole different conversation. So
that really is a whole different conversation, but it is one that we do need to speak about, that we should be having that conversation about how do we use effective consequences, one that actually, teaches and allows them to grow and not just punishes and punitive, exactly. in that sense. So yeah, that is brilliant. Frances, this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation.
I have enjoyed it.
So if people want to find out more about what you're doing and perhaps work with you in the future and so forth, how can they get in touch with you? What's the best way to do that?
Well, my webpage is ruddfamilyandlifecoaching.com. And I'm also on Instagram. I am Frances Rudd. So they can reach me both of those. I have a free 20-minute discovery call if you want to talk about what's going on and things like that, we can talk about how I could help you. And then we can look at that, going from that point. So yeah. So, because I do everything via Zoom because that's the easiest way at this point, but it's ruddfamilyandlifecoaching.com. And I have, again, a 20-minute discovery call, because a lot of times parents may need something or need help with something and it doesn't quite fit into the descriptions of things I have. Call me anyway, because I mean, I'm big into songs. We can work it out. So yeah. So yeah, definitely. So,
absolutely. Brilliant. And then also you're doing I've noticed you're doing a lot of clubhouse rooms as well.
Yes,
so people can jump in and come and catch you and listen and connect with you, because I love Clubhouse. I love that you're able to jump up on the stage.
You got you there. So it's Frankly Speaking, I did Frankly Speaking with FAR, Frances Ann Rudd. And I do Saturdays at 8. That's consistently with parenting. And that's this week, it's going to be parenting, self-care, and guilt, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we're going to talk about that. And then on Sundays,
go ahead and say what you was on Sunday. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you there.
Yeah, and then on Sundays, I'm doing that a parenting potluck, so that if parents have something, I had it strictly for advocacy, but then I'm doing a parenting potluck so that people can come in and just, if they have questions about parenting, just come on in, have a seat, let's talk about it. So yeah.
Brilliant. So what I was going to say is if you could drop the links to those two events in the comments under this stream afterwards, so cool. Anyone watching, they'll be able to kind of find you on Clubhouse and at least press the notification to get the reminder when the room starts and stuff. So that would be awesome. Yes, so that's brilliant, Frances, brilliant. So thank you again for your time. Before I wind up, I just want to take this opportunity to remind people about this amazing teaching resource on STEM Career Today, which do some amazing learning resources and things. And go and check out their website, use the code LearnShare. You'll get a whole year's worth of fantastic teaching resources. I'll tell you, as I said before, if I was still in the classroom, I would be using that effectively now. If I was still in the classroom teaching, I'd be straight on there using that, because it has all of the resources ready to go in so many different criteria under STEM, science, technology, education, art, mathematics, all of those careers. Brilliant. So again, I would drop the link for that in the chat under this, so go and check it out. I think it's amazing. And anybody else that have got some fantastic resources for our parents and children, do let me know, because I'd love to share. The more that we can get our parents and children's using these things, it helps us to transform that generation. It helps us to move us forward and to grow into this place. So as I said, as parents, we are our children's first and continuous teachers, and we must recognize the impact that we have on our children's beliefs about themselves, about their ability to go and do things, how they move around the world around them as well. So let's be the best version of ourselves. Let's teach them. Let's lead by example. Let's show them how they can become magnificent beings just as we are. So that's what Visiting Parenting is here to do, is to help and support you to do that. And Frances gave you some wonderful, wonderful things that you can begin to embed, especially with that stop, look, and listen. Stop, look, and listen. I think that's amazing. And we know that phrase. We know that phrase so well. So let's apply that. Let's apply that to ourselves and what it is that we're doing. So Frances, once again, thank you, thank you, thank you for spending this time with me for such an amazing conversation. I appreciate you. I appreciate your energy. I appreciate all that you are doing in this arena, in this field, in helping parents, in supporting children, and helping us all step into our magnificence. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was happy to be here. So that's the truth. So yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. So everyone,
cool beans. I forgot to say cool beans.
Oh yeah, this is the first time I heard it. Cool beans, cool beans. So everyone, our next episode is 2 weeks time, which is the 17th of November, and I will be having the wonderful, you've seen her before, but this time it's her time to shine. It's Beata Tina Fuller will be my guest that I'll be speaking to in 2 weeks time. So please do make sure to come along and join in with our Visionary Parenting online series. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been fantastic. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Be blessed and go and sow those seeds of success within you and within your children. Take care. Bye.